Hi, I'm Shirley Jones, and this is Gemma Wenger's Hollywood.
Academy Award nominee for The Godfather, so that's probably what you're best known for.
Boy, I'm pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, and 4-time Golden Globe Award nominee.
Yeah, I never win anything. It's just like getting awards and no jobs. I'd rather get a job. They're going to give me a piece of glass.
I know.
can't eat
You eat
glass.
regular
Oh,
that way.
nice.
God bless. Thank you.
God bless you. You take care.
How about a kiss goodbye? Adios.
Hello, I'm Martin Landau.
Hi, I'm Florence Henderson, and you're watching Gemma Wenger's Hollywood.
I'm Gemma Wenger, and you're watching Gemma Wenger's Hollywood. I have two amazing people with me today. I have Sean McNamara, who is the producer and director of Bau, Artist at War, as well as Deborah Smerecnik, who is the screenwriter and producer. This is an amazing movie, and these two are just fabulous in their roles in creating this powerful work. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks for having us, Gemma.
You produced Soul Surfer as well as Reagan with Dennis Quaid, and you did a movie, executive producer, Wake Up. But you know what? You are what everybody has been praying for. Everybody has been praying that Hollywood would turn into Holywood, meaning good movies that are entertaining, that are not violent, that are not derogatory, that do not teach our children to do the wrong thing. So God has raised you up, even in these last days, because we know He's coming soon, but we know that He has raised you up to produce these movies that are really incredible. How did this come about? What drew you to this book, and then writing the screenplay, and then producing it?
Well, let's start with you on that one.
Well,
it all starts with Deborah.
Yep, I met the daughters 16 years ago this October in Jerusalem. We were on a tour, and they were brought there to tell their parents' story. It's an amazing, a fun-filled story about their love, how they overcame incredible odds. I was so fascinated by 20-year-olds being in a concentration camp, risking their lives to save hundreds, if not thousands, of other people, and then how they actually got married in the camp. I said, this has to be a movie. It was just so amazing that I said, I'll do whatever it takes to help that get made. And
so
I
this
knew
is a
nothing.
true story.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only a true story. If you saw Schindler's List, there was a couple who get married in the Plaszow barracks, and this is their story. So Schindler's List was about Schindler and what he did, and they were kind of almost extras in his movie. They were there at the end too. They laid rocks on Schindler's stone, on his headstone. But this is shown in Schindler's List, this couple, and we just told the whole story of the couple.
Now, a lot of times people would say, oh, the Holocaust, oh, it's tragedy, it's sorrow, it's grief. But you made it very much humorous. You added a lot of humor, you added a lot of joy, a lot of love, a lot of light, a lot of hope in the midst of the darkness.
Yeah, well, what you just described is Joseph Bau. He's the one that he found the way to survive, and one of their goals was just to survive. But if they brought, jokes, inappropriate jokes, light, they were able to cheer people up in those horrible circumstances. And think about it, to find love there. Because you're right, when you think of a Holocaust movie, usually you're just, I don't know if I want to be sad. I don't want to feel those feelings.
Right.
But what Joseph did, he would have been like maybe a modern day Robin Williams, somebody who could just crack jokes. He was great with his witty art. He would, he was always doing things that kept people a little bit on edge with what's he going to say next. And when we met with the daughters, Leela and Hadassah, they would just talk about what a prankster he was, what a joker he was, even within the family. And we love people like that, They bring us joy, they bring us light, and that's who Joseph was. And, behind every good man, they say, is a good woman, and that was Rebecca Bau. They were both equally holding each other up, and they both equally turned the tide on saving hundreds, if not thousands of lives.
And of course, both of them were incredible actors and really captured the comedy as well as the love, as well as succeeding even in this really difficult situation. They were amazing. How did you choose them?
Emil Hirsch and Imbar Levy is actually from Israel. So what's interesting about Emil that I found fascinating is he is an artist, and he considered himself a prankster all of his life. So he said, you know, when I was asking him, how did he get into the role so easily? He said, well, that's me. That's who I am. I just love to tell jokes. I love to have fun and, you know, do art at the same time. So it's interesting. He fitted the role beautifully.
I love the way you incorporated the art and then the next scene, and then the art and his signature, and then the next scene. Where did you find that art? Was that something he drew or was made for the movie?
Well, first of all, the first thing I read was Deborah's script, and that drew me in to want to meet her and make the film and learn everything. So the script was fantastic. But as soon as I read the script, I read his book, and it's Dear God, Have You Ever Gone Hungry?, which has now been renamed to Bau, Artist at War, and is for sale nationwide everywhere. But in Oh God, Have You Ever Gone Hungry?
Wait, so the book is now named after the movie?
After the movie. And in there, he had the charcoal drawings. So I love books that have pictures in it. So you can go to the pictures faster. And I'm like looking at these, and I went, each one just said something, and he has a very unique style. Like if you were to say there's Picasso's style and there's Joseph Bau's style, and it jumps out at you, and it's a very interesting thing. And he's done all different. He's done charcoals, he's done oils, he's done watercolors, he's done everything to his life. In fact, he went on to become a major animator in Israel. But in this book, these haunting pictures, and I study film. I mean, I've been to film school, and I've just been making movies since I was 12. So I've even studied the silent films, and in the silent films, they would put dialogue. They would write a text on there to say, this is what's happening. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting, instead of doing dialogue, just show his picture? And so what I had to do is go through the book and go, this would be a good heading for this sequence of the movie, and this would be a good heading of this sequence. And then we found these real animators, and they drew the last pieces. So as it came up, the last pieces, as if Joseph was drawing them himself. So we just used that, and then that became our template for the whole movie.
And also with the picture on the toilet paper, was that?
Oh, that's true.
That was true.
Yeah.
That's actually really happened.
Oh, yeah. I love artists. I love people who, if they're a writer, can just write down and their art comes through words, or if they're a painter and their art comes through the paintings they do. So a director is somebody who gets to work with a lot of artists and get to watch their work and then kind of put it all together in a film. And Joseph Bau had that heart. He was an artist, he was an animator, and he was just incredible, and a writer. Like, he literally wrote a book of what he did. So I have an affinity for artists and why they're trying to make us feel different, and he was great at it. He had political art, he had art that he did when he was in the Plaszow concentration camp. He was a real artist, and it just, it poured out of them. Like, Deborah's a writer who writing pours out of her. That's a gift, that's an artist. For me, I love to direct. I would direct every day for free if somebody would just give me movies to do, because artists, it just comes out. You can't stop it. They don't think about it. And so when I've seen painters that you walk into their studios, there's hundreds of paintings all around because it just keeps pouring out of them. That was Joseph Bau.
It was fabulous. I love the art and how it introduced each scene. What do you want people to walk away with?
My heart for this film was to encourage others to be able to overcome incredible odds, incredible difficulties in their life. And I have seen so many people crumble beneath, horrible circumstances and not appear to have much hope. And these two were in that kind of situation where death was could have been a reality any moment. It was one of those situations. They're in their 20s thinking, is this all there is to life? So this movie gives people hope. It gives them the ability to say, no matter what horrible situation I'm in, if I choose to look at it, I believe through God's eyes, that He can help us all overcome no matter how difficult the circumstances.
I want people to know, and I truly believe this in everything, miracles happen. We say it in the movie, in our, current day 2025 lives, we go, oh, life can be tough, or this is going wrong and this is going wrong. And you compare it to what was going on in 1944 in a concentration camp where people were just getting killed and all this horrible stuff, and they were able to find love. And to me, that was like, how could they even be thinking about something like that? It's a miracle. The fact that those two survived and built their family after that is a miracle. And there's miracles all around us. We have to just choose to seek them out and find them. So that's ultimately what I want to have people walk away. I do want to entertain them. I want them to walk away and see these incredible characters. Like, I used to grow up on reading Chicken Soup for the Soul, just those sorts of movies. So to me, Soul Surfer, or Miracle Season, or Spare Parts, these are all little like parables about you can have incredible things go wrong in your life, but if you just stick with it and just with a little time and a lot of prayer, it's going to turn around and eventually you will break out to the other side. But you have to believe it's possible. And I think when you see a movie like this, and if they believed it's possible, anything's possible and miracles happen.
And the fact that they both survived and how he was willing to die for her and she was willing to die for him is very powerful.
Absolutely. I mean, this is all part of the true story when they would, find out who was on Schindler's actual list, and they were trying to help each other. I mean, they were trying to all get out, and because they knew that was life. That would, if they were able to get onto the right train, there would be life, and that's what's so interesting about the story. When I read it in the script, or when the daughters told me the story about when he was whistling for her, that intrigued me because I thought that's kind of cinematic. He goes into this town, he's looking for his wife, he can't find her, he thinks she's dead, everybody else is dead, 90% of the people that he knew are dead, his mother, his father, his family, and they had a secret whistle with each other. What was it? And then they'd answer, and so he literally goes into the hospital, they don't have her, he's given up, and he's walking out of town. And then he just as a lark, he just gets that whistle one last time. This is true. Can you imagine? Like, usually you think that's a big cinema thing that they made up.
Right.
And he heard her whistle back. And it was like, did he hear it? Did he hear it? That's what I call a miracle. I mean, he was that close to walking out of Silesia and never coming back. Those sorts of stories are the ones that really intrigue me. Love can be found anywhere. And when the two right soulmates come together, they find each other, and it's fantastic.
You are an incredible storyteller. I mean, I'm just like mesmerized. You're like powerful and strong. That is really amazing. I'm sure it helps you as a director, producer,
well,
writer.
It does, but it all is based on the story. I'm a good interpreter. I take what she wrote, and I take what the real story is. We always forget what Joseph and Rebecca's story is so extraordinary. But she put it in a way, then I look at it, and then I take it to another level. Then you bring in these genius actors like Imbar Lavi, who I didn't know from Adam. Our casting director introduced us. And I'm like, wow, she is so good, and she has such an interesting face. Yes. And then Emil, who worked with Sean Penn and did Into the Wild, and he has done these movies, even Lords of Dogtown, the one that was shot down here in Venice Beach. Like, he's just an actor, and he owns it. Like, I keep looking at him and I go, he really feels like he's from that period, and he's believable with that. And I go, yes. My work after we have a brilliant script is to get genius actors to come in and breathe life into that. So 98% of the casting process is finding those right people to come together and do it. And man, did we get fortunate with getting those two actors.
They were amazing. Also, your Germans were incredible. I mean, they were powerful.
Yeah.
They're negative, they're dark characters, but you saw emotion there as well.
Well, Jan Tool plays Gruen, and he was, we were casting for this, which is very interesting. I have a whole story about that, but we ultimately shot the movie in Vancouver because we were actually in Poland, in Krakow, ready to go. We were there scouting and everything when COVID hit. So all of a sudden we're like, what do we do? They were going to give us $1 million toward the movie. There was all this thing, and we just had to get out of Poland. And then, like everybody, we had to shut down. We're like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? And so I ultimately, we had Austria, we had Poland, we looked in Romania, we looked in Ireland, we looked all over the world to find the perfect place. But ultimately, we knew it was going to be a lot in the Plaszow barracks. And right now, real Plaszow concentration camp is a dog park. It's just, it's beautiful, but it's all grass. There's a couple of headstones left. But it was a terrible thing when that got shut down. But when we came back, we started casting. And up in Canada, you have to cast a certain amount of Canadians. So Jan auditioned for the part, and he was just brilliant. He blew everybody away for that part, for the role of Gruen. And then we find out he's not Canadian, he's French, and he's from somewhere else. And they said, you can't hire him. And I was like so upset, because I said, no, well, look, we had all the Canadians come in and they're so talented, but none were like him. So we had another casting session, and we went through like another 10, 20, 30 people. And at the end of the day, nobody stood up to that guy's talent. And we just said, we got to do whatever we have to do, pay more money or do the tax incentive differently.
It was worth it.
And it was worth it, because
it was worth it.
And you want it to work the other way. But when somebody, I really do think that certain people are born to play certain parts. And sometimes the delays are from above. They're there by design. And then so I never, if something goes wrong and it takes a little longer, I go, yep, there's a plan going on here and we just got to go with it. And luckily he walked into our lives and got to play our just fantastic villain, our antagonist. And he is a great actor. So you really felt it. And yet you also felt a humanity with him, because it's not just black and white. These guys were following orders, but there was evil going on. And it was so wonderful to find actors. And by the way, these actors are the nicest people in the world. The real people are just so good at their talent of being an actor that just, you hate them. You're like, how could you be so terrible? And then they're just super nice. So it's so interesting to work with people like that.
What was the hardest part of making this movie?
I think the most difficult thing for me was putting it in such a way, like I said, his life was so amazing. There were so many different acts of his life that I thought, how am I going to put this in a 2-hour period? So that was difficult. But then what became difficult was figuring out what team to work with. I had never worked on a movie before. I knew nothing about movie making. So then, I moved. We were actually living on Maui, and we were from Northern California originally. And then we moved to LA and started meeting people and figuring out who's going to be the best for this team. So I went through a number of writers. And then I found out I could write it. But then we had producers, we had directors. And boy, when I met Sean, it was like, oh, there's no doubt. This is the one who can do justice to this movie. And
you had like a connection.
Right. Well,
what was it? What was the spark?
Sean is so willing to listen. It's wonderful. He has such a heart of compassion and a desire to see things done well. He's not about being, oh, I got to do this to be flashy or to be known. It's no, can I do the best with this story to make it desirable to the public and to have a message? All of his movies have great messages that come through. They're always a redemptive message that you hold on to afterwards. And so, of course, that's what I was looking for. And so it worked out beautifully.
When we were in the final stages of getting ready to go, knowing that it's challenging for people to want to go see a Holocaust movie, the element that I found challenging to get into the script was the right amount of humor, because it's a very fine line. So it's something, other parts, if we're testing somebody's hair and makeup, we put them in front of the camera, we light them, and we can figure out if it's right or not. But when you're going for a level of comedy to break the serious moments and the tragic moments, you're like going, is it going to work? Is it right? Should I do a take that's more serious, and all of that sort of stuff. So that was the part that was the most frightening to me. But Emil and I and Deborah, we just kind of figured out, let's just go for it. Let's find it and we will do it. And so we had to commit to that level of comedy to know if it worked. And I got to tell you, when we started doing our test audiences and to hear the audience laugh, I'm thinking, thank God that it works, that they could see it and understand what we were doing, because it released the tension. And having Emil being a likable guy going through this thing where his parents were super protective of him. They're saying this sort of behavior will get you killed. And he's going, look, they can't take away joy from us. They can take away, where we live and all of that. But if they take away that part of us, they've won. And so matching the humor with that and to get people to laugh, that was a very difficult part to make sure that we got right. You get very nervous because the most important thing is the story and the tone that would work. So that was the...
I think you did that brilliantly because it came across very clearly. Because when you think about a Holocaust movie, you go, oh, I don't want to be depressed, I don't want to be sad. But this was not the case. You dealt with the situation that there was tragedy, there was grief, there was sorrow. You know, you pointed that out, but the story really was about the joy in the midst of the sorrow and how this gentleman was able to have joy and comedy and be funny. And I think too that will appeal to audiences because they don't want to be sad. They don't want to be depressed. But that's all part of the Holocaust, and we have to acknowledge that and honor that. But this movie really showed another side, and I think you did that fabulously. That was the movie, the joy and the fun and the falling in love and the miracles in the midst of, I mean, they actually laid down their lives for each other. That was powerful. So there were so many powerful truths intertwined in the tapestry of everything that the Holocaust had to say. So definitely, I think that was the right choice, to be honest, because people want to be uplifted rather than feeling down.
And it never escaped me when we were making the movie. And I always like, if people get too serious on a set, I go, it's not brain surgery. We're making a movie. We're making a piece of entertainment for people. But it always contrasted with the fact, look, we are off making a movie, we say action, all of this stuff, we know that a lot of people will be entertained by this. But the real people, the story about it, it was life and death decisions in your 20s. And every once in a while I go, I don't think I could have done what they did. The courage that they had to do what they did, because they were sneaking people out of the concentration camps. They had a whole scheme. There was like espionage going on in how they did it. And I go, those were real people in their 20s that had that sort of heart. And it wasn't for like just a movie, it was real life. And that's why, I mean, all credit goes to the real people that this happened to. We just tried to tell a good story about what they did. But when you think of Joseph Bau and his wife, you just go, you guys really deserve all the credit for what you did, the thanks for that. Because just thousands of people live now because those people saved thousands of lives.
What was your favorite part of the movie?
My favorite part was when he saved the boy from, one of the young men lost his, I think he was 12 in the movie, he lost his sister, and that was the only family he had left. And he was so distraught, so overwhelmed by the sadness, he wanted to kill himself on the fence of death, which is the electrocuted fence that's between the men's barracks and the women's barracks. And many people did kill themselves that way. They would just run at the fence and die from electrocution. And Joseph saves him.
And then he ended up being the lawyer.
Yes.
Yes.
That was amazing. I mean, actually, the look was fabulous. Yes. That as a child and then as an adult, transforming into that was very good casting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good. And that really kind of dotted the I and crossed the T. That was really a nice part. I love that part, too. How about for you?
Well, I love that part too. Josh Zuckerman is the actor. It was very good. Okay, so when we were scouting in Poland, I mean, you go to the real locations and you see things, but also I like to see where the art is. So we got to go to the opera house there. This wasn't in the script, and I'm like, wouldn't it be great if we could just shoot here and have a whole thing where, and she came up and she wrote a scene for me because I just loved the idea of juxtapositioning the elite going off and listening to opera and having champagne, cut to them doing something terrible to the inmates. And there's something about when you see a movie, when you cut back and forth between two elements and you have music going on and you have so you feel all like different and strange inside because you see the elite having these wonderful lives and you see the poor people who are just having a terrible life, tortured practically. And to me, that was fun to actually, because I could see it in my head. She wrote it so I could shoot it. And then we figured out how to, put it all together in that sequence.
Yeah, I actually kind of noted that. I really like that where the opera singer is just singing and then you're kind of dealing with the torture in the concentration camp. It was wonderful.
The message came through. Like you said, it softened their suffering, but at the same time, it made the message of how horrible these Nazis were at that time to allow torture going on willy-nilly and them going off to see an opera.
I loved the way you went back and forth throughout the movie history to the present. Talk about that. Was that your decision?
Well, to go back and forth, what was interesting, it was the way she presented it, the way it started with them in the Krakow ghetto. And what's very interesting about this movie, and this is, I always say, when you're making a movie, the script and everything, it's a living, breathing organism that you're doing. So when we shot the film, we had shot the film in color. We had, just decided that's how we're going to do it. We had different looks for the color, but we shot it in color. And while we were in post-production, what I was trying to say was that a film is a breathing, living organism. The script is constantly changing, how you shoot it constantly changes. When you add these actors, they have ideas. So in post, I'm watching it, and in Plashow, they wore blue and white prison garb. And it was interesting because it actually brought a cheery feeling to it. When I looked at it, and I understand probably why Steven Spielberg did that with Schindler's List, turned it black and white, because there's something we look back in history and we say it's black and white. So while we were editing, I asked the editor to flip the switch to see what this would look like in black and white. And bam, like when he did it, it just popped off the screen. And I was like, wow, it feels way more like we're in this. But I didn't want to completely do it black and white. So we start off in 1970 when he's being interviewed by the lawyer in a 70s sort of Kodachrome look. And then when they go to the ghetto, this color starts to drain out of it. And then when they're in the concentration camp, full black and white for an hour or so of the movie. And then when it comes back to the trial and we go to Austria, the color starts coming back in, and we went with vibrant colors at the end. So there was all those things we're trying to do just underneath, but that was not planned. That came as we went through the process of making a film. So that's one of the things I really enjoy about making a movie, where it just keeps changing as you make it.
Where can they go see this movie?
Well, that's really important. So it goes out nationwide September 26, 2025, so 3 weeks from now, across America and Canada. And I would love people to come and see it on the 26th, because one of the things is when you do movies that are important and have, that people should see, what they don't realize is if it does well the first weekend, it'll stay in theaters longer, and then the press picks up on it and more people get to go see it.
You were talking about that the daughters have a museum in Israel.
Yes. So they have a museum in Tel Aviv that is their father's office. So that is actually where he did so much of this work. And unfortunately, the building is going to be destroyed and rebuilt. So they will be losing that location for the museum. So they do need help.
They need help because they're going to rebuild the museum elsewhere. But all of his stuff, his animation tools, his artwork is all there on the walls. So that inspired us. So we built scenes that all happened in his office when we actually shot the movie.
You guys are a dynamic duo. Thank you so much for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gemma. Thank you for having us.
And thank you for watching. I'm Gemma Wenger, and this is Gemma Wenger's Hollywood.